welcome to the Nubeva channel. We're going to try a little bit of a different format today. It's just going to be me talking and answering some questions that we've been receiving from our investor community over our inbound channels. Okay, so the first question that we have that's come in several times is we've got a number of friends of the company who want to introduce us to the companies that they work at to socialize us to try to get us in. And we've been asked, what is the basics of the pitch? What's the 5-minute or 3-minute elevator pitch? And with that, I'll cover that, and then I'll cover some updates in the industry after that that'll just give you some backdrop. So the simple elevator is this. Nubeva has figured out how to do something that people generally think is impossible. We can decrypt modern ransomware without paying the ransoms. You see, the problem is that ransomware is continuing to increase. Despite all the spending that's been put into cybersecurity and backup systems, ransomware guys are really good. They are highly motivated, very sophisticated, and they keep on adapting. So they find holes, they find gaps in security, they find holes in backups, and they target and they research your business. Once they're in your environment, they research to figure out what assets will create the biggest damage to you so that you actually can be crippled so that you have a high likelihood of paying the ransom. So what we represent is a new level of risk mitigation and risk reduction. In fact, it's arguable that we are the single fastest, lowest cost, and easiest way to dramatically reduce the risk of significant or catastrophic damages from a ransomware. We're a lot like a flu shot. You take us so that if you get sick, it won't be so bad. With ransomware reversal, when you get attacked, we actually capture the keys in the background while they're encrypting your files. And with those keys, we actually can enable fast and easy and efficient decryption without having to pay. So that's it. It's a very simple story. Reduce your risk of ransomware attack, damages and suffering and losses, etc., with a brand new layer of protection. Now, you could obviously say that story and spin it any number of different ways, but that's basically it. Attacks continue to happen. And if you kind of think about that, it's really pretty amazing, right? The world has spent over $100 billion in cybersecurity backup solutions in the last few years, yet ransomware is on the rise. Last year, there was a lull in ransomware, and it was widely reported in the first half of the year. And it's largely believed because the world's threat actors were distracted with the war. Now they're back, and they're back with a vengeance. All reports and all counts say it's surging, and it's surging in multiple different levels. You're seeing reports of it every day, but interestingly enough, not everything is reported. I mean, if your business was attacked, if you didn't have to tell people what happened, if you didn't have to tell your customers or your suppliers or your shareholders that somehow you're vulnerable, you wouldn't. So many attacks actually go unreported and unnoted. So what you hear in the media is the tip of the proverbial iceberg. It's really pretty bad out there, and it's pretty sad. Ransomware continues to be a major threat to our way of life, and we're here to make a dent in that. As I mentioned, ransomware are some threat actors. These are human beings who are highly sophisticated. They somehow find their way in, and they figure out where and how your business operates, where there's systems that create interdependencies that help your business operate. Let's say it's a finance server. Let's say it's an accounting server. Let's say it's just a file share that's got critical documents on it. You know, the average person, if you're not in the industry, you kind of think of what would happen if my laptop was ransomed. But for the most part, nobody cares. The threat actors are not going after your laptop unless you're maybe the CEO or the CFO and might have some critical data, or maybe the patent server. But the reality is they're going after server infrastructure. They're going after infrastructure that drives your business. So, for example, in modern computing today, servers typically are not physical. There's actually physical computer machines, but they're running virtual computers, VMware type stuff, if you've ever heard of that company. So virtual machines are running, they're fully formed computers that are really just files sitting on a bigger server that's running all these different virtual servers and systems. Well, what we're seeing constantly is that they're attacking those virtual machines. They're actually encrypting the entire virtual machine, which actually is a file set on a bigger computer, physical computer. And if you think about that, not modern computing also isn't one big monolithic computer that's running everything. It tends to be lots of little computers that are interconnected doing sub-functions. So all it takes is for them to find their way into crippling one of those, and the entire system that's dependent upon that would be taken down. So we're seeing this more and more often. And I think the other thing to think about is this: is that we have a tendency to think in our data centers we protect everything as best we can. But one of the more common things that people will also attack is actually things like domain controllers. Now, a domain controller is a thing that actually allows you to get onto your network and see services in a Microsoft Windows environment. You don't think of that as necessarily critical server system application infrastructure, but it is absolutely a high dependency piece of critical infrastructure to an organization. Imagine your domain servers are actually ransomed. Well, you can't even get on your network to get to the systems. That's a very common target too. So it's really interesting that most organizations, when they are planning their data resiliency and their backup strategies, aren't thinking about all these other interdependent components. But these guys are very, very good at finding those or crippling them. They'll delete backups, they'll corrupt backups, they'll turn off backup systems for a week and then and spoof them so you think they're running, and then they'll attack you. It's all about creating recovery gaps that improve their odds that you're going to pay. And the bigger damage they can do to your business, the more they're going to charge. So that's a little bit of a color commentary and a backdrop for any of you out there who are just trying to get some of the basics here. And of course, what's happening with the increased volume is we're also seeing an increased spike in terms of ransoms. What are people charging? Those are not changing very much. We're seeing some disruption in the insurance industry where certain carriers are starting to drop coverage and drop customers. This is really gonna get worse. And I think that's the last part of my message here, just in terms of kind of a market recap, right? This is gonna get worse, not better, unfortunately. Let's start here. We have a proven $50 billion crime industry that nobody's been able to put a realistic dent in. So it's attracting more and more criminals. So you have a highly motivated, growing workforce of threat actors. The second problem is look at our world, right? It's full of unrest. We've got uncertainty in the economy. We've got recession, whatever it might be. People want money. They need money. The third thing is that we've got the advent of AI. And it's starting to sprout out. You're starting to see articles of people are producing artificially intelligent driven or powered ransomware. So think of ransomware that's smart enough to get around your security systems, and it's adaptive in a very scary way. And he capped that with the fact that there is no system, no security system, no backup system that's 100%. There's always a hole. There's always a gap. And if you combine that with there's always human errors, this is going to continue. So our message to people is you need to plan on the worst case. You need to plan a plan for when all else fails. And some might think that's insurance. Cyber insurance is great, but cyber insurance just pays the bills when you're in the hospital. They don't make you better, right? So if you're in the hospital for 30 days, 60 days, by the way, the average downtime is 21 days of business disruption, and it goes far beyond that for some organizations. They pay the bills, but they don't cover the long-term repercussions, right? Of hey, you're sick for those 21 days, and maybe you lose customers, you lose revenue, you lose employees, you lose partnerships, you lose brand and trust. There's a lot of things that have a longer term cost and consequence than the short term recovery or a ransom fee. So that's really the backdrop of the world. It's really pretty ugly. We feel very, very good that our solution is still standing up and proving itself to be unique and important and valuable. So the next question is we continue to get a number of questions about our business model and our sales pipeline, et cetera. I would ask everybody to go back to a recording that I did on March 21st, where I completely covered our business model, how we charge, what our revenue model looks like, as well as talked about our pipeline. Our pipeline continues to be very robust. We expect our sales to be lumpy until we get to a certain scale, but we feel very good about where we're at. Okay, last item to cover. Shortly, you'll be seeing a filing from me that shows that I have sold a little bit of stock. First thing I want everybody to understand is that this in no means is a reflection of my commitment or belief in the company. The fact is that my daughter's getting married and I've got some taxes to pay. And the amount that I'm selling is an insignificant percentage of my stake in this company. But I thought it was important to get that out and for you to hear it from me, because I think anytime an executive sells stock, actually investors need to understand the backdrop to that. So hopefully that doesn't stress anybody out, but it's important. Life happens and it's something that I need to do. And I appreciate you understanding that. Okay, that's it. So that's a short update for this week on Nubeva and what's going on. I want to thank you for your interest and your support of our company. As always, if you know of any organization, including your own, that might need ransomware reversal and ransomware protection from Nubeva, please introduce us. We would love to have a meeting and follow up and see if we make sense for them. Thanks very much.